Thank you for taking the time to watch our pleated drapery yardage and pricing demonstration video. This video will take you step by step through the pleated drapery yardage and pricing calculator. We will estimate fabric yardages and labor and material pricing for a sample window treatment project. When we are finished, you will have a real good understanding of how our pleated drapery yardage and pricing calculator works. We hope that you'll choose to put it to work for you. To get started, we'll need to visit www.easypleating.com. As a member, we'll log in, enter our login name and password, and we'll be brought to our members homepage. The members homepage has certain information, allows us to get to our calculators as well as change some of our personal account information. For this demo, I'm going to click on the pleated drapery yardage and pricing calculator. This calculator has three main sections to it. This gray section that we're scrolling through is our project information, such as whether it's lined or unlined, a pair of panels, left panel, our fullness, our rod width, our finish length, some of our fabrication details such as our side hems and allowances. Then we have the green section that I'm scrolling through now that shows us pricing information. We can enter certain pricing for our fabric, for our linings, for our interlinings, for our blackout, for our trim, if we're selling it. We can customize different header styles and the amount of money that we charge per width, whether they're lined or unlined or lined and interlined. The amount of money we charge for trim, installing pins, certain upcharges for long panels. For example, if our panel is greater than 145 inches, we add an extra X dollars, in this case $46 per width, on top of the base pricing labor. We can have custom upcharges for silk fabrics, for hand sewing buttons and hand sewing hems, and for measurement fees, installation fees. We can have markups and markdowns, a lot of great things. The third section here is the cutting instructions. Because we're producing not only an estimate, we're also producing a work order, we can enter cutting instructions into this field, such as remove, selvage before assembling fabric widths. Things of that note, and then when we wind up in the workroom, this information is on our work order. So I'm going to close up our cutting instructions screen, our materials and labor pricing screen, and we're going to focus just on getting some fabric yardages for a job we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is enter some project information. Mrs. Smith. The side mark, maybe a guest room, and our sales order will be linked perhaps to our accounting system or some other filing system. Our fabric pattern will be checkered. This helps us minimize errors in the workroom because this information, our fabric pattern and color, will wind up on our work order. We're not going to include pricing with this particular estimate. It's a pair of panels. It will be lined. The header will be triple pinch. Our fullness will be 2.5. Or we could have selected a fixed number of widths if we were doing stationary panels. So I'll go back to 2.5 times fullness. It won't be railroaded. Our rod width will be 84. Our finish length 89. Our fabric width will be 54. Our vertical repeat will be 21.5. We got this information from a label stuck on top of the fabric. Our lining width and interlining width are standard, but we could change them. Our return will be 6 inches for this project because we have a blind or a shade under it. Our overlap is 3.5, and we're going to add trim on our leading edge. Now we're going to focus on the information in this area is pretty specific to how you fabricate. For example, our side hems will be made from double 1.5 inch folds. Our overlap side hems will be double 1.5 inch folds. Our top hems will be double 4 inch folds. This is the first fold and this is the second fold. Our bottom hems, I'm going to make them double 3 inch. Our lining hems will be double 2, and my interlining I'm going to make them 0 because I serge the bottom of my hems. Our seam allowances will all be 1/2 inch. Our cut allowance, which if I click on this I'll get some help, it's the amount of additional fabric that's added to each cut length, kind of to give you a little cushion when you're fabricating. Our trim allowance, I'm going to add 3 extra inches of trim to every trim cut, just to have a little extra. My lining allowance, I'll do the same, extra 2 inches of fabric to each lining cut, just in case there was a scuff mark on it. My lining offset, it's the distance that my lining will be lifted up from the bottom of my face fabric. I like 1 inch. If I were using interlining, I would lift it up 1.5 inches. So my face fabric would, for example, touch the floor. My lining fabric would be 1 inch up, and my interlining fabric would be 1.5 inches further up. Now we're going to click the Calculate Results button and see what we get. We've received a fullness alert. This window is telling us that if we reduce our fullness just a little bit, we might be able to save a whole width of fabric, or at least a half a width on the left panel and a half a width on the right panel. If we reduce our fullness from 2.5, which is 2.5, down to 2.2, we might be able to select to save fabric. I'm going to ignore this and continue, but if you wanted to, you could go back and reduce your fullness, and you'd actually reduce the number of widths from 2.5 widths per panel, as it's showing us here, down to 2 widths per panel. And that might make the difference between whether or not you get the job. So I'll ignore this. My results page is showing me what I've entered, all my project information, and then it's calculated right away. It's figured out that we need 2.5 widths based on our fullness and our rod width, and 5 widths to do the pair, and that our unhemmed panel width after sewn together will be 118.5 inches wide. Our side trim cuts, because we selected trim, would be 2 cuts at 92 inches, and our yardage is 15.5 for our fabric, 13.25 for our lining, and 5.25 yards for our trim. Now, where does this information come from? Let's have a look. We click the cutting information icon, and we see that we're facing double fold face fabric down, top hems down, and place our lining fabric under the hem. So here's what it's saying. This is a stick figure of our lining, and this is a stick figure of our face fabric. Our face fabric is 89 inches finished length, because that's what we chose. And it's adding double 4 inches on the top and double 3 on the bottom. And if you add all of that up together, you have a cut length of 103. But because we have a vertical repeat of 21.5 inches, that plays into our cut length. And so with our repeat and our extra allowance, our cushion for fabric, maybe a little damaged fabric on the bottom, we need 111.5 inches per cut. And since we have 5 cuts, if we multiply that together, we're going to wind up with 15.5 yards of fabric. Our lining, a little different. Our lining is 88 inches long because it's offset 1 inch up. We have double 2-inch folds in the bottom, and we have no folds on the top because this lining is going to be placed under here, right up to the top here. And that's how it gets assembled. And so we need 89 inches plus 2 and 2 for a total cut length of 92. But if we add the extra 2 inches we selected for our allowance, we need 94 inches times 5 cuts is 13.25 yards. We can also have a look and see what our panels are going to look like. Well, we need 2 panels, a left and a right, each made from 2.5 widths of fabric, 89.5 inches finished length. We have a left panel and a right panel made from checkered fabric that's red, and we're using trim down the leading edge. Pretty interesting, a lot of information here. And when we print this to a work order, our work order is going to look something like this, which is a lot like the screen, and it's going to show us all the information we input, the cutting information. It gives us very detailed information. For example, cut 5 widths of fabric, each 103 inches long, from 54-inch wide goods. Cut one of these widths in half to form 2.5 widths. And it gives you detailed information on a work order as to how you might want to proceed to assemble this. We get a visual fabric layout and our fabrication notes. Now, if I were going to add some notes to this work order, I would click on this cutting instruction information and I would say, don't forget to trim the selvage before assembling. And if I were to recalculate this and look at my work order, I would see that these notes are now included in my cutting instructions. Pretty nice. I'll close that up and we'll go back and say, hey, what if we're doing 4 pairs in that same room? Well, I simply just changed my number of windows to 4. I click Calculate Results, and now all my yardage information changed to 62 yards, 52 1/4 for the lining, side trim 20 yards. Now my stick figure is still the same because each panel is still constructed the same way, but I have many more panels now to fabricate, and obviously much more in the way of fabric required. My panel layout still looks the same. What's different, of course, is my yardage. If, for example, I wanted to add blackout lining, or let's say I want to line it and interline it, I'd simply check the radio box button, click Calculate, and I would get now interlining yardage as well. This time I'd get 3 stick figures, one for fabric, one for lining, one for interlining. Now notice our interlining is just a straight piece of fabric because the top goes underneath here. The bottom we chose on this job to be 0 because we're going to serge it. But let's say we want to change that. We go back and say, wait, I want my interlining hems to be double 1s. And I recalculate. Not only did my yardage recalculate for my interlining, my drawing also redrew because now I have a double 1 on my bottom. Nice information, and of course this would all wind up on my work order, which looks something like this. A little hard to see on this little small screen, but now we have cutting information for our face fabric, our lining fabric, and our interlining fabric. I'll close that up. I'll close that up. It's that simple. If I wanted to go back to one window and my return size is only, let's say, 4 inches because I'm not installing a blind under it, and maybe my rod width was, I'm wrong, it's 87 1/2. I just simply recalculate, and all my information is quickly recalculated. My drawings, my stick figures I like to call them, have been redrawn. My cutting information has changed, and it's that simple. Next, I'm going to show you how to add pricing to this work order. So to add pricing, we can leave all our information the same and just simply select yes to include pricing calculations. That's it. Naturally though, we have to open up our pricing input form and add our customized information into this form. So this is kind of a one-time thing. You do this once, you save it. And so for example, there's certain things that may change from project to project, but your pricing for the triple pinch header, lined, unlined, and lined and interlined would stay the same for all your projects. So let's just imagine that this information is correct, and the amount of money we charge to apply trim to the sides and labor to install pins and our upcharges, let's just assume that these numbers are okay. And on this particular job, we're not using silk and we're not hand sewing bottom hems, but we are going to iron and fold and package. And we're going to, for each panel, we charge $8 for that. And let's just say we are going to provide track hardware, and it's by the rod width, and so we charge $11 per foot for the track hardware. And let's say we charge a measurement fee for each window we measure, and let's just say that's $25. And again, you don't have to include these things. I'm just trying to demonstrate the flexibility. I'm not going to add any comments into my pricing, and I'm going to leave all this information alone. Let's just say the fabric that we're selling, though, is $65 a yard, and the trim we're selling is $45 a yard. typically as a workroom, you'll leave your blackout pricing the same, your lining pricing the same, and interlining pricing the same across all projects. But you might, if you sell fabric, you might most likely will change the price per yard for the fabric choice that your customer picked in the trim choice. So let's say I'm happy with all this input. And once again, by the way, you can get help on any of these fields by clicking, looking, reading, and getting a better understanding. So now that I have all my input correct and I've selected yes to include pricing calculations, I'll click Calculate Results, and you'll notice this time I have additional icons on the bottom. I have an icon that will show me my pricing, an icon that will allow me to print a work order and an estimate with pricing, and another text version in case I want to perhaps look at this in text format, highlight and copy it, and maybe paste it into Word or some other program so that I can do with it what I want. I can email a copy of this to somebody that I would like to have this, and I can look at the estimate itself right on the screen. So in this case, let's go back and look. This is the same information we saw before with our yardage information and our cutting information. Our same cutting information stick figures we talked about. Our same visual layout. And now we have pricing. And so it figured out 15.5 yards, it's $65 a yard. It figured out our lining material at so many dollars a yard per yard, and our interlining and our trim. And our base labor, which is based off of our heading, triple pinch pleat heading prices, was 6 widths at $48 a width. Our pinning, it added 6 total widths at $1 width to pin. Trim labor, measurement fee, track hardware, and iron and fold. Let's say I don't want to add these extra features. And there's my total. I simply go back down to my green input form, which is my pricing related information. I say I don't want to charge for ironing and folding. I do want to charge for my track, and I don't want to charge for a measurement fee. And I go back and I recalculate and I look at my pricing, and now I don't have those features here. What's this, pinning labor? What if I don't charge for pinning? It's already in my per width price. Well, I go down there and I say I don't want to charge to install pins. Okay, I recalculate. I now have a different price that doesn't include my pins. Now, let's look and see we have 2 total panels. But what if I were doing 4 of these identical panels in the same room? I'd recalculate. Naturally, my yardage is recalculated, my stick figures, my visual layout, and now my pricing. Very different pricing because there's more yards, etc., more yardage. So let's say I go back to the customer and say, okay, let's find a $32 a yard fabric, and let's find a $15 a yard trim. And I recalculate. I look at that again, I look at my pricing, and I say, wow, that came down a lot. 62 yards at $32 a yard now. And my lining, let's just say I'm going to sell her a less expensive lining, my customer. So instead of $5 per yard for the lining, I want to change my lining price to $4. And I recalculate. And again, all my information has been updated. And my pricing now is calculated differently to reflect a different price per yard for lining. I look at my second page. There's no second page. This is my total for labor, my total for materials. Pretty simple. So using these check boxes, I could, let's say I don't want to charge for fabric because I don't sell fabric and I don't sell the trim. I just estimate the yardage. I recalculate, and now I don't have any labor. Material charges, I'm sorry. It's the only material I'm selling on this job is lining and interlining. And that's it. It's real simple. When I look at my printed work order this time, I have a little bit more information. I have the cutting information, the visual fabric layout, but this time I also include, a estimate along with my logo, meaning your logo. You can upload your logo and it will appear on all your work orders and your pricing estimates. I can take this estimate and I can send it to somebody by just simply clicking here and entering the email address and send them a copy. As I said, you also get a text version where I can grab this, highlight it, and copy and paste it and put it into Microsoft Word and do something else with it. I get this great information too, with our cutting information that says, exactly how to cut, how many widths to cut, etc., etc. Kind of making it foolproof. Really taking a lot of the work away from thinking at the table and allowing you to put your time back into selling and fabricating as opposed to doing estimates and calculating yardage. And that's it. We hope you enjoyed this presentation, and we look forward to helping you manage and grow your window treatment business.